Hi friends, welcome to Canary at Home. My name's Lacey, and today we're going to be making a warm color windsock. So what's a windsock? Well, a windsock is a sock-shaped fabric that interacts with the wind. It's used as a tool to measure the direction and the strength of the wind in places where that's really important, like at the airport. But they can also be made as an outdoor decorative object or piece of art, which is what we're going to do today. So what's a windsock without the wind? Well, in our case, we're working with a white cylindrical piece of fabric with some of these fabric strips hanging from the bottom. But without our artwork and without the wind, it just collapses into a pile of white fibers. So we're going to use our materials, our artistry, and the natural force of the wind to wake up our windsock and turn it into something special. What are some other things you know that are activated by the wind? Windmills? Dandelions? Sailboats? In your Canary at Home kit, you're going to receive warm color materials. Now, what are warm colors? Well, warm colors are the colors that remind us of warmth. Think about fire or lava or the sun. So what are the colors that remind you of warmth? Yellow, orange, red, pink or magenta, and peach. The color of an object can affect the way that object makes us feel, and warm colors can evoke a sense of excitement or energy. So in your kit, you'll have your windsock and you'll have an assortment of warm color materials, which I'll show you now. First, you'll have a warm color oil pastel. We'll give you one in your kit, and if you have any at home, you can also use those. Then you'll have a set of warm colored liquid watercolors, yellow, red, and orange. You'll have a paintbrush and a plastic embroidery needle and a set of warm colored yarns and some warm colored paper and wooden beads. You may also need to grab a pair of scissors. So let's get started. So the first thing that you'll be doing is using your oil pastel to make lines or drawings or patterns on your windsock. I'm gonna do some polka dots. Don't forget to flip it over and do the other side. Now the super fun part, the paint. We have liquid watercolor and a brush. Now remember, with your liquid watercolors, you need to dilute it just to about halfway up the container with a little bit of water. You might also need a bowl of water just to wash your brush in between colors. Start with some yellow and paint onto the fabric. Sort of see my oil pastel popping through that paint. Now I'm going to switch colors, so I'm going to wash my brush. Wash, wash, wash. Ooh, watch the way that red is bleeding into the yellow. What do red and yellow make? I'm finding that where they meet, it makes a beautiful orange. Now maybe I'll add some orange and see how that's different from the orange that I've mixed. I love watching those liquid watercolors kind of dance together. Notice how the yellow dots are appearing more clearly. That's because it's an oil pastel and the oil actually pushes away the water in the paint. That's called resist. I'm going to do each one of these kind of ribbons a different color. Remember, this is a sculptural object, so once you have painted one side, you'll have to flip it over to paint the other side. And when I flip it, you'll notice that because the fabric is so porous, the paint bleeds through it to the other side. And that's actually quite beautiful. Now, I like little surprises like that, but some artists are a little more particular and they might not want their paint to bleed through. In that case, you might stick some thick paper or cardboard inside the cylinder of your sock, and then that will prevent it from bleeding through. Now, I wanted to paint my whole windsock into the warm colors. I didn't really want to see any of the white, but you might want to leave some white. That's your preference. So once you feel like you're finished, you can move on to the next step of embroidery. Now, it will help if your windsock is dry, so you might want to wait for your windsock to dry. If you can't wait and you want to go right ahead, just know that you're going to get your fingers, a little bit of paint on your fingers. The next step of our project is embroidery. So for the embroidery part, we need an embroidery needle. This is a plastic embroidery needle, so while it is a little pointy on the end, it's nice and safe for small hands. And then a few warm color embroidery yarns. Now, embroidery is when we insert yarns or strings into fabric to create a design or to add colors. Now, to get started with this step, I'm going to show you how to thread your needle. Now, if you are younger than about 6 or 7 years old, this could be kind of tricky for you, so you might want to get a little help from a grown-up. First, I'm going to unwind some yarn. Then I'm going to take this tip of the yarn and I'm going to insert it through this skinny eye of the needle. All the threads through, and then I'm going to pull it through. Now, depending on how much yarn you're going to use, at this point you can cut it to make a shorter thread, or I'm just going to pull this whole piece off. And the first technique I want to show you is to add some threads of yarn to the sort of tail of your windsock so that you have a little more activation with the wind. So you're going to take your needle, make sure you're holding the fabric with the other hand, and you're gonna poke it through. That was like super easy. You're gonna poke it right through that fabric. You're gonna pull it through. And I'm gonna kind of measure this tail of yarn and make it about the same length as these ribbons that are already hanging. Now I can slide that needle off the yarn. Now to secure this on and make this stay, I'm going to tie a knot. Loop it through down here and then pull it up. And then I'm going to cut this here to make it the same length. I think I'm going to add a few of those pieces of yarn to give it even more movement when I put it outside. Another way that you can use your yarn to embroider is to make some actual lines into your fabric with the yarn. And I'm going to show you how to do that. So make sure your needle is threaded and pull through a little tail like that. Now at the very bottom of the tail of your yarn, I want you to tie a little knot. Just like that. And then you can find a place where you'd like to add a line or a pattern, and you poke through. So I'm going inside the cylinder, poking that needle through to the front, and then pulling that yarn through until it catches the knot. Don't pull through too hard because that knot could poke through. Then it becomes like drawing with yarn. You can make a vertical line by poking through this way. You can make a horizontal line by poking through this way. Or you could make a diagonal line by poking through this way. Now, this type of embroidery, like I said, can be tricky. If you pull it too tight, it will bunch the fabric together. So you want to kind of keep that yarn loose, like this. After you've added as much embroidery to your windsock as you'd like, then it's time to add some beads to the top threads of your windsock. So you'll have wood beads and you'll have these cut up paper straws. Once you have as many beads as you'd like, you can take all the strings together and give them a knot. So now that you've made your beautiful windsock, the most fun part is going to see how it interacts with the wind. How will you wake it up when you take it outside? Where will you hang it? What will the wind do to it? Maybe you'll put it on a stick and swing it around and dance with it and play with it. See how it changes when you move. I can't wait to see what you make from these materials, how your windsock comes together, and what you decide to do with it. Thanks for making with us today. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more great lessons, or tag us at Canary Art on Instagram. Hi grown-ups. So most of our lessons are process-based art lessons. That means that a child can approach this process at their own skill level. So this process works from any child ages 3 all the way up through tweens. A 3-year-old is really going to enjoy the oil pastel drawing and the painting and the action that they can take on this object. However, an 8-year-old might really be into the embroidery and making intricate designs with the yarn. So we hope that this process works well for your 3-year-old or your 8-year-old and any ages in between. And we hope that you might get involved as well.